Hello, it's Deborah from the attic, and this is part one of looking at ways that we can use your interests to spark your own inspiration. I'm going to start with my interest in dogs, which has inspired both of these little projects. One is a card and one is a paper tag. I started my project from the premise that I really like background words. I love background stamps, anything that's nice and big and creates a soft background without intruding into the foreground of whatever your project is. And because of my interest in dogs, I've used some different dog breed names and I've written them into a Word document program. I've changed the font a little bit. I've toned it down so that it's grey. Because it's grey, it will fade away into the background and it won't dominate the rest of the project, and you can see that in this little tag. Although there is lovely background, you don't need to pay attention to it if you don't want to. You can focus entirely on the dog and the sentiment. So this is based on a whole load of different dog breeds, and then at the bottom I've added a mixture of words that I can use to make up my own sentiments on my own cards. In these two projects, because I used a stamp from My Favourite Things, and it is this stamp here, and it's called Canine Companions, and because I've used the dogs from here, I wanted to use the same sentiments as well. So that's what I did on both of these projects, but you're not always going to get exactly the sentiment that you want from a stamp set, so it's a good idea to be able to draw up your own. So I've written a load of different words down here that you can combine to make different phrases. So doggy friend, sock thief, rescue dog, dog lover, furry friend. There's all kinds of words and phrases that you can put together. Of course, you can do this using your own sheets. I'm going to make these available on Etsy, but and it will be one of a set of 4. But of course, you can develop your own words and your own backgrounds depending on what your interests are, and then that can be used for your inspiration. I'm going to talk you through how I made this card because it's quite simplistic and straightforward, and then I will show you how to make this little tag. With the card, I took my background words which I'd printed out and I cut out a section small enough to fit on the front of a craft coloured card. I stuck it into position and then I got a fine brown pen and I drew 2 lines around the outside so that I created a frame. The reason for doing that is because I knew I was going to use a tiny little dog in the centre of my card, and I didn't want him to be really isolated in the middle of the card. I needed some way to shrink the card background so that it looked like a better fit for him. Then I took one of my stamps and I used this little dog here, and I stamped him out using black ink and I just coloured him in. I happen to have used alcohol markers to colour him in. Then I took some matching craft card that matches this card base, and I used white heat embossed powder to do the sentiment. And the sentiment that I chose was the one that reads, "You're the big dog today." Now this is a little bit too long, this sentiment, to fit across this part of my card. So I cut it down. I cut it down so that I've got "You're the big dog today" below each other. Then I cut out my little image because I gave it time to dry, and I backed it with some little foam pads. So I backed him with these, and that means that he stands out just a tiny little bit and it gives the card extra interest and dimension. And it also meant that I could pop his little legs just slightly overlapping the top of the first line of my sentiment. And that way you can use a very small image in the centre of quite a large card, but it won't look as if he's lost. He won't look isolated. He's got the words to anchor him into position. The other thing that I did was I have quite a lot of Nuvo drops, and I used them just to finish off the card. I used two different colours. There's a sort of a brown one and a sort of a coppery goldy one, and I just added a few of those around my dog's head, and that way again it pulls the whole design together. Similar colours complementing the dog, and you don't notice that in the background these words from our background page are grey. Somehow because they're grey is a very good neutral colour, and you can add all sorts of other colours to that and it will still look as if, I don't quite know how grey works, but it looks as if it takes on the colour of the other elements that you use. I can show you that in the tag as well, because this tag is blue. The grey background complements the blue. It's a very, very useful colour, and it's why I chose it when I printed out my background paper. It's why I chose a very soft grey. This is very, very easy to work with. It doesn't dominate anything else on my tag. So I'm going to show you how we made this. To begin with, I cut a section from my background words. The tag I'm going to show you is a little bit smaller because I want to show you that you can mix it up depending on what you need for your project, and there's nothing that says you have to make a tag exactly that size. So we're going to change it. We're going to make a slightly smaller one. This time I printed out gorgeous, gorgeous little dog, and it was this one here, and I've coloured it in pink because I want to make something that's a real contrast to this one here. So I've got my base and I've got my dog. My dog, I think, is going to sit about there on my tag, but I want to add a background to this. So with this tag here, I took a piece of blue card and I cut it out so that it was exactly the right fit for this tag. But I've started with a rectangle. So how do I make this be a tag? Well, because I have a mat that has these squares, I'm going to use those. So I'm going to join up these two corners. I can cut these off. And I have a tag. I have a piece of pink paper which will match the rectangle that I made, but this time I'm going to cut away the shoulders on this, and I'm going to leave about the same sort of gap between my printed paper and my pink card. I've got my basic tag now, and I'm going to glue the printed page onto the cardboard pink background. I'm going to use this 3-in-1 glue. This is very good for making sure that your project doesn't have lines and ridges in it. When you press this glue down, it will glue down flat, and I like it. It's not appropriate for every single project, but I do like it. And when I'm gluing down a piece of thinner card onto a piece of thicker card, it means that I don't get ridges. My work is completely flat. Next thing I want to do is add a little hole and a hole protector like I've done with this tag. So the first thing I want to do is take my crocodile. If you don't have a crocodile, use one of those double hole punches, but only punch out one hole, not two. And I'm going to pop that hopefully in the middle ish, and then I want to create my hole protector. So I'm going to use my crocodile again, and I'm also going to use a 1/2 inch round hole punch. This is one of the most useful punches I have. I use it time and time and time again because it means that I can create hole reinforcements that are identical to my project. I don't need to worry about going and trying to buy something that will match my project. I can make my own. And the way to do it is to take the card that you want to be your hole punch, your hole protector, and begin with the smallest hole. Don't begin with the largest hole. I'll show you why in a moment. Let's do this one first. And then working upside down with the hole punch, find roughly where the centre is. That looks about right to me. Oops, punch. and then find your hole reinforcer, and we'll glue this into position. Let me show you why you do it that way around and not the other way around. This is the way not to do it. You don't punch the biggest hole first, because then it makes it quite difficult to size up exactly where the centre should be. I reckon maybe there. You can see it doesn't quite work out right. I've got my tag base ready, I've got my little dog ready, and I'm going to cut some words from my word sheet just to show you how you could do that. So I think I'll go with sock thief. My dog is a sock thief. There are a couple of ways that we can add this phrase. We can stick it directly onto there. We can take a pink pen or some pink ink and we can go around the outside edge, just draw a border around it. Or if you have enough of the pink cardboard that you use to create your background on your tag, you can stick it on there and cut it out. And that's what I'm going to do. I'm using an ordinary glue now. I have a Nuvo glue. This is just like a PVA glue, and I'm using that because it doesn't matter about ridges, because this is cardboard going onto cardboard. So there's less risk that there'll be ridges. It's only when it's thin paper, you know, and you might get sort of a ridge of glue showing under your clean paper. For my little dog, I'm going to add foam squares. I'm going to show you a way that you can remove the backing on paper pads that saves your nails and saves your sanity. Just get a pokey tool or a needle or something with a sharp edge, sharp point, and just pop it under and pull it away. It's much faster. I have some Nuvo drops. These ones are called honeysuckle, and I'm just going to randomly dot these on the front of my tag. So I hope these little projects have caught your interest and that you might give something like this a go. I hope you'll join me for the next part of this series about using your own interest to create your own inspiration, and until we meet again, take care.